Over the last weeks, we've redesigned this room. There's a bookshelf now, and there's now this other shelf for things. There's a completely new camera angle. Hi. But most importantly, I've got a new audio setup, and the centerpiece is this, the Universal Audio Apollo X4 Generation 2. Let's check it out. I don't know how to show you this while we're recording. Good thing there's B-roll. But not now. Hi, welcome to Bass the World. My name is Gregor Fries, and on bass I'm accompanied by my buddy Phil Rehm today. Earlier this year I needed a new computer. My old iMac was struggling with the workload, so I upgraded to a MacBook Pro Max Hyper Super Scrat or something. The computer's great, but apparently my interface is old now. This new tech doesn't want to talk to it. I had some to get me through the year, but it got more and more apparent that it's time to get a serious interface again. This thought process happened right on time when these new Generation 2 Apollos from Universal Audio came out a few weeks ago. There are many different versions. For me and the sort of project studio work we're doing here, the 4-channel desktop unit is the perfect choice. One of the main features of these Apollos is that you can run plugins in real time on a quad-core DSP chip without any latency. In the intro we've used the UA610B mic pre plugin, which comes free with the interface. Here's a slightly overdriven Ampeg SVT VR, which is also included. Before we dive into the details of the X4, let me say I'm not what you would call a proper studio guy. I've learned all of this by doing, and when I see a list with all the things the Apollo can do, half of the numbers on there mean nothing to me. There are plenty of studio channels who already made much more comprehensive videos featuring this interface. I can't do that, but what I can do is, show you how we're using it and why I think it's the perfect fit for me and the studio. I want quality, I want a perfect sound, and I want minimum latency. I guess things everyone wants. But now, as I've used the Apollo for a few weeks, I came to realize that there are a few more things that I want. 4 channels are a huge relief after working with 2-channel interfaces since my setup changed. Now everything can stay plugged in and we can record instantly at any time. On the X4 we have 4 of these XLR inputs that also take TRS or simple bass cables. But if you're planning to plug your bass directly, there are 2 extra inputs on the front, which are dedicated for guitars and basses. Now we need to make a jump from the hardware to the software. This is the UAD Console, and here we have our first 4 inputs. Each channel has 2 of these areas, Unison and Inserts. Now, as I grab this SVT VR and track it to the Unison box of channel 2, the moment I drop it, several things happen. The input impedance of this channel on the interface changes to what the impedance of the original unit is. This is one of the many efforts they took to make sure the system sounds and behaves as authentic as possible. Everything that sits in these Unison boxes up here will be printed when you're recording. That means you commit to these sounds. They will be on your recorded tracks and you can't remove them later. If you're sure about what you're doing, this can save you a lot of time later. If you're not as confident, you can do the same things with these inserts here. Every plugin you drop in there will be heard while recording, but not be printed. That's at least the general idea. You get all these plugins also for your DAW, in my case Logic, and you can apply them later when you're mixing. And speaking of these plugins, they sound fantastic. Here's an example using the UA610A preamp. Important about this whole plugin and console thing is that everything that happens in here won't affect the performance of your computer. My MacBook is a high-spec machine that cost me a fortune. It's the fastest version you could configure when I bought this in February. Even with this insane computing power, the latency makes this kinda unusable if you're using more than 1 or 2 plugins at the same time when recording. At least I think. I haven't tried it in a while, to be honest. The Apollo is a godsend when it comes to recording plugins, but there's even more. This is, again, what I would call a project studio. A mostly untreated room. I have absorbers at the ceiling, bass traps in the corners and a rug underneath me when you're recording my voice, but otherwise this room is not treated. This is fine, mostly. I can clean my voice recordings up with plugins that remove room sounds and the basses are mostly recorded directly, so that's fine. But this is also the room where I'm working on these recordings, where I cut and edit. I'm using a pair of Adam A7V speakers which sound excellent, but of course, as in most rooms, there are still issues. That's why Universal Audio is working with SonarWorks. You can buy a reference mic like this and use the software to find out what frequencies are possibly overemphasized or also come short in your room. I did all these measurements and I'm surprised how these frequency ranges have moved up and down since we made some changes to the furnishing. There used to be a solid 200 Hz bass build-up, now this has moved towards 100 Hz. Long story short, there's now this calibration file sitting in the monitor controller section, which compensates for the shortcomings this room produces. This allows me to make better decisions when mixing. It gives me the confidence to know I hear an accurate representation of the sound when I'm working on these mixes. By the way, there are also effects plugins. Here's a red pedal combined with an Ampeg SVT. I've been working on the setup for the past 2 weeks and I can't see how I could ever go back. This interface is amazing. Especially the little things like this dim button that lets you hear your mix in a lower volume instantly to get an idea what's still coming through. Same with the mono button or the mute button or the big wheel that controls all the input and output volumes. Brilliant. Speaking of input volume, there's an auto volume feature that sets the perfect input level for you if you want that. I think I've understood the hardware and now it's time to try all these plugins and possibly recreate some channel strips so I can possibly get rid of all the output gear in future. Here's the Centauri Tube channel strip. What an interface. The only thing it doesn't seem to have on board is ChatGPT. Not that I wanted that. I'm super happy with my new setup, the Apollo X4 as well as the Adam speakers. I already don't like some of the mixes I did recently, which is a good sign. That means everything will sound better in the near future. If you want one of these, check the links in the video description below. We're working with a bunch of Universal Audio dealers, and if you order through our links, they will know we sent you and pay us a little kickback, which is just the easiest way to support our channel. Thanks for watching. That's it from me today. Bye. BassTheWorld.